All right, so to be going over bearing spacers and the two different types. So basically, there are going to be two. So you have a 8 millimeter and a 6 millimeter. You can actually see the 6 millimeter. There is, let me get a little thing to point with. There's a little, like a ring on the inside of this. If you kind of compare that to this one, there is no ring, right? You see that little, this little inner ring right here, and it's not on this one. They both have bearing spacers. This is a 6 mil, and this is a 8 millimeter. So 6 millimeter is kind of the older style of it. We're still going to see it in a lot of like kid skates. Maybe some other brands might still use it, but most people and most brands are going to be using in an 8 millimeter. So a lot of times people will buy a wheel set and it'll come already assembled with the bearings and the spacers in it already, and it's either the wrong one. So either they have a 6 millimeter axle, and the spacer that's in the wheel that they buy is an 8 millimeter, so it's gonna be too big, or vice versa. They're gonna buy something with an 8 millimeter and their axles are 6 millimeter. So you can swap these out. Bearing spacers are all pretty much, there's a few different, lengths and everything, but for the most part, they are pretty much like the same. So across most brands and wheels and everything, they're going to pretty much use the same like length of spacer. So you really just need to worry about the inside diameter there, that 6 millimeter or versus 8 millimeter. So, say you buy these wheels and they come with a 6 millimeter axle, and you want to reuse the spacers out of some old wheels. Pretty common thing that happens. Basically, you can take the spacer out of this and put it into this. So I'll kind of show you how to take the bearings out of both of these, and then swap them out. And I'll kind of show you what they look like when they're outside the wheel. So this is a Rollerblade Pro Tool Pro, or Blade Tool Pro. Sorry. Super highly recommended. It's super nice. You can, folds up. You can put it in your pocket. You can take that part off. It has a T25 end to it, star bit, and then a regular 4 millimeter Allen wrench on the other side. So you're probably not going to need either one of them right now, just because you're doing the bearing removal. Also has this nice little nub here on the other side of it, so you can pop the bearings out. You don't need this. You can do this kind of maintenance with a screwdriver or anything. You'll see the motion when I get into it. Like, it's just kind of like a prying motion for the 8 millimeter, and then for the 6 millimeter, you're just kind of pushing it out. So 8 millimeter. So you say you need this spacer in this wheel. So basically, you're going to take this and get that in there like this, and just kind of crack it open like that. That's your spacer right there. That's what the 8 millimeter spacer looks like. So now the bearings are out of this wheel, or the bearing spacer is out of this wheel. And like I said, if you want to put it into this one, to swap this 6 millimeter out for this 8 millimeter, basically the idea is you're going to push against the spacer and just push the bearing out through the other side. So kind of like my way of doing it, it's nice when you have the thing on it, because it gives you like a guide almost. So basically I'm just going to push, probably pretty tight. There you go. So that's the bearings out of it, or the bearing spacers out of it. So this is what the bearing spacer looks like versus the 8 mil. So the 8 mil just kind of will float in the wheel, kind of like that. Whereas the 6 millimeter, like if you can imagine, that's how it's going to sit in the wheel. It has like these little like shoulders or like spots that you can put the bearing on like that. So basically, you're just going to reassemble your wheel. So now that you have your bearing spacers out and you want to put this one in there, you just put it in there and then put your bearing right back on. And now you swapped out your bearing spacers. So definitely, it's a good way, so you don't have to go and you can buy new bearing spacers, of course. But if you do have some old wheels that you're trying to get, or some new wheels you're trying to get into your skates and you need to swap the spacers out, you can always just reuse them. So reach out with any questions, and yeah, happy to help.